If you have ongoing exposure to controlling people, it's a virtual certainty that you're going to experience blurry boundaries, which is why I've created the extensive online course called This Is Me, Establishing Boundaries with the Controllers in Your Life. There's a link below that will give you all of the details, and I hope that you would find it therapeutic. I want to discuss today with you a topic that is on many of the minds of those who are watching here today, and that's the issue of narcissistic abuse. Part of the reason you're here and listening to people like me is because you've said, I've been putting up with all sorts of behavior that are so inappropriate, I can't keep doing it anymore. And we're going to get to that, and we're going to talk about how you can move away from that. Before we do that, though, it's essential for us to understand and underscore you need to stay focused on what a healthy personality and what a healthy relationship requires. One of the things that I emphasize here on this channel, Dr. C, DRC, stands for dignity, respect, and civility. Those are core ingredients that are part of your manner of living, and those are ingredients that are lost on the narcissist. Keep in mind that they stand for high control over you. They stand for selfishness, and they must stay in a superior position over you. They have a low regard for your feelings and your needs. They feel no need to understand you. They're willing to live behind the walls of a false self. In other words, they're both phony and defensive. They must stay in a superior position. They bring chaos, in other words, to relationships. And they don't just offer the opposite of DRC. They commit themselves to unhealthy characteristics, and then they consistently build themselves up at your expense, which takes us back to that word abuse. This is abusive. I ran across a very interesting study recently, and it was a very large number of people that were involved in this, thousands. And these are people that were interviewed from age 15 all the way through the adult years. And the study revealed that at least in this group of people, at least 40% of the individuals acknowledged that they had been on the receiving end of excessive ongoing abuse. That's a very high number, and it's something that's intolerable. When we talk about abuse, we're talking about mistreating someone else for bad purposes. We're talking about being consistently insulting, willfully causing pain and harm toward another individual. Willfully, I say. They prioritize dominance and they prioritize your subjugation. And this abuse can come in the form of physical violence, emotional disruption, verbal condescension. It can play out in many different ways. And perhaps one of the greatest indicators that says that you have indeed been on the receiving end of abuse is that the characteristics of abuse have just become your norm. In other words, it's just kind of what you know. It just feels like, well, I guess that's just the way my relationship is. And it can define your way of life. It has way too much influence on the way that you manage yourself and how you present yourself or engage with others in relationship. Now, I want to give you multiple indicators that would tell us you have indeed been on the receiving end of abuse. Because sometimes you think, well, am I exaggerating my reactions? Well, let's take a look at some of the possibilities. One of the things that I find it's very common for people who've been abused is when they step away from that abusive person, they actually feel both amazed and distrusting when other people show understanding. It's like, really? I've been over here with this other person and I just feel so pummeled, but do you really want to know me? Do you really want to understand me? When you feel that way, that indicates something's wrong. Your sense of right versus wrong has been skewed in that abusive direction, to where understanding and goodness actually feels strange. Go figure. Another indicator is that you've probably been abused is that you have an automatic defensive reaction when uncomfortable topics arise. Now, none of us really enjoy being confronted and told about, some of our negatives, But that abused person can have such an automatic defensive reaction. It's like, whoa. We can be objective here. Just because we're talking about a difficult topic doesn't mean we're going to get into one another's negatives in a harsh, demeaning kind of way. Abused people don't have that luxury of thinking like that. In addition, if you've been abused, you're probably prone towards one extreme or the other with respect to the way that you attach to people. Abused people will either cling too quickly to someone else, or they can be too reluctant to attach to other individuals. On top of that, you can also have extremes in the way that you manage your opinions. You can be too rigid as a result of having been abused, or you can be too loose as a result of having been abused. That middle ground is very difficult to maintain. Another indicator that you've probably been abused is that your anger management skills are very unrefined. They can be raw, they can be agitated. If you've been exposed to somebody or several somebodies who come across in a very stark, angry way, you begin to mimic their dysregulated form of anger. And by the way, there's a healthy form of anger. Sometimes we know that a person's been abused because they easily feel embarrassed by their own mistakes or miscalculations, which is a form of shame. It's like they've learned we don't accept people who are imperfect around here. And as a result, they have too strong of a feeling of defeat when they have to admit, yes, I'm flawed. In addition, you probably know that you've been abused if you sometimes just numb out. It's like, you know what? I can't afford to care anymore. And you just kind of go into a zone, just leave me alone. I don't want to deal with individuals. Perhaps letting go of your resentment or your contempt towards other individuals can feel self-betraying. That's another indicator. And by that, it's like, well, if I forgive or if I just have acceptance toward other individuals as opposed to resentment, it's almost as though I'm giving up on me. I'm letting go of my feeling of power. Sometimes your history of abuse can lead towards you struggling with substance abuse or other self-defeating patterns and behaviors. It's like, I don't even care anymore, or I'm just going to go out and have some fun, or I'm just going to do some self-indulgence to an exaggerated extent. Many times, if you've been on the receiving end of abuse, you develop an attitude of defiance. Nobody's going to tell me what to do, and I'll submit to no one, and I'll cooperate with no one, to the extent that that becomes exaggerated. Or if you've received too much abuse, obviously, then you can be prone towards anxiety and depression and thoughts of your own personal demise. That's how far it can go. Now, there's one ultimate fallout that comes into your life when you have received abuse, and that is love becomes confusing. And it's sometimes confusing to the point where it seems unattainable. And yet, when you have been on the receiving end of abuse, I'm hoping that we can go back to my original comments here and say it's essential for us to understand what a healthy relationship, what a healthy personality is grounded in. Dignity, respect, and civility, or let's just take it a little bit further, the person who wants to grow needs to basically say, I stand for love. The abuser put fear and insecurity and anger and confusion on the inside of you, and that makes no sense. It's injurious, it's wrong, and we need to stand up and say there's a better way of doing it, and I'm going to commit to that better way. Now, when you say, I stand for love, I do not tolerate abuse, what does that look like? Well, first, we're going to declare it was wrong for me to receive another person's psychological injuries. Plain and simple, and I'm not going to apologize for calling it what it is. It's wrong, it's inappropriate. I give myself permission to grieve because of the problems that I've had. And my grief is going to become an impetus for me to being devoted to the better alternative of goodness. I give myself permission to withdraw when uncomfortable circumstances come along. In fact, I have to learn to protect myself. Self-care becomes a high priority. I'm going to own my anger. and I'm going to own my pain. Now, a lot of times whenever you feel angry and pain with that abusive narcissist, they'll tell you to shut up and you're not allowed to have that. Well, the fact is I do, and the anger and the pain is trying to tell me something. It can lead you towards self-preservation. Now, as you hold on and you own your anger and your pain, then you can also decide, and I'm capable of managing that anger and pain in a constructive way. I have options, just as a narcissist has options, but I'm not going to choose the destructive ways of doing it. My anger is going to, and my pain is going to prompt me to say, I'm standing for my convictions. I'm standing for my sense of decency and worth. That's what you will receive when you engage with me. When possible, I'm going to seek harmony because that's what I believe in. But then when harmony is not possible, I'm going to give myself permission to go into a different direction. I'll maintain a healthy fear, and by fear I mean wariness and concern towards that narcissistic individual, but it's not going to come at the cost of my self-trust. I'm going to trust myself even as I fear in a healthy way that other individual. And I'm going to keep going back, and I know some of you struggle with this one, to forgiveness and radical acceptance when I think about how I'm going to respond to that narcissist. And that doesn't mean you condone, but what it means is I'm going to have an understanding that says pain exists. That person is a very troubled person. I accept the fact that it's reality. I don't like it. I forgive myself if that's necessary. I accept myself. I accept the reality of it, and I'm going to move on to a much better and different reality as opposed to staying bogged down in all of their negativity. Dominant power. Abuse is not love. Love is its own form of power, even though you're not seeking after power. As someone who's committed to love, I'm hoping you can decide abuse has no place in my life. I will receive it no more, and I will not be a perpetuator of it in my own personal life. Narcissists can't think that way. I hope that kind of thinking defines you. Now, I hope that videos such as this can give you some inspiration as you continue in your growth journey. Thank you for allowing me to be on that path with you. If you have not already hit the subscribe button, I would encourage you to do so. We're going to keep more videos coming your way. Hit that notification bell too, and we have plenty of videos that'll inspire you, I hope. In addition, I've been sponsored for years by the people at BetterHelp.com. Sometimes when you're dealing with something like this, you could use some help, some therapeutic intervention, and BetterHelp has a whole team of licensed professional therapists that you can select from. Go through the link that we have below, and it'll lead you some questions. And then once you do that, you can select a therapist that can work with you so that you can get on that path towards self-love, dignity, respect, and civility. Invest in yourself and get the help that you need. I so believe in the necessity of that. Now, in addition to that, in my retirement years, I put together courses, online classes, and each one of them has its own therapeutic focus. Each class has at least 25 teaching videos. Each video has handouts and guided questions. We have anger games, which is all about staying out of the anger traps that they try to pull you into, along with This Is Me about establishing those boundaries. In addition, we also have Free to Be, Ready, Set, Connect, and there are links below to those classes. They're also on my website. Avail yourself to that, and if you want to invest in that kind of assistance, I put a lot of work into it. It requires a lot of work from you. I hope it would be beneficial. On my website, we also have access to my webinars, which are 90-minute presentations, and they're very powerful. And we're adding to our list of that as we go. In addition to my books, articles, access to my podcast, so lots of resources. Like I say, love does not tolerate narcissistic abuse. I hope that you decide I do stand for dignity, respect, and civility, starting with myself. Hold on to your sense of resolve, and when the narcissist implies, well, I don't go that way. They may say they believe in love, but they don't. It's like, I see you for what you are. You're not going to be in my inner circle at all, and I'm going to move on towards my sense of peace.